G'day guys, we've got a few things in store for you today. We're going to show you how to take photos of the moon with the Galaxy S21 Ultra. It's not 100 times zoom. I'll show you what I think is the best way to do it. We're going to take some photos, compositional photography with the Milky Way once the moon goes down, with some trees and some light painting, and we'll compose those photos together in Snapseed and end up with this sort of photo. And we'll also take this sort of photo. Everyone does it. You can do it with your Galaxy S21 Ultra, and I'll show you how to do it. Let's get into it. G'day guys, Shane Mostyn here. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, everything I'm talking about here today is in the description down below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel and you're into mobile photography, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, even give me a like. I never ask for that sort of stuff, so hit the like button if you enjoy this video. And if you have subscribed to this channel already, you're a bloody legend. So with the 100 times zoom on this, you've got the 4 different automatic zoom lenses with those trees there, and you can touch on those. It'll give you 1, it'll give you 3, and it'll give you 10. But past 10, it's a manual scroll with the finger on the screen, and you can take it all the way up to 100 times zoom and zoom right into the moon. You get some reasonably good photos of the moon with it doing just like that. But what I will say to you is you can get it better by not going all that distance. So if you have a look on the screen here, the yellow square up the top left hand corner, you need to have the subject that you're photographing, in this case it's the moon, you want it to be in the center of that big square. So I just need to move it on the tripod a little bit here, down a little. At 100 times zoom, this can be a massive pain, because the computational photography that this thing has and the way that it does that zoom, it tends to put it all over the screen. Now it's sitting there, I'm not touching that at the moment, it's still moving around a little bit. If I touch on the moon, it's going to try its best to focus on the moon. It's thrown it out of that square, it's going to bring it back in, and that's the best job it's going to do right there. What I'll tell you though is that you can get it better when you zoom out. I'm going to bring it back to say 50. Say 52, that's close enough. Bring it back into the center of that screen. A little bit of mucking around with doing this. I'll tighten that back up. And if I now focus on that moon, come on, when you're ready, Exynos. It's really struggling. I'll bring it down a little bit more. Some days when I do this, I kind of miss shooting with my Canon with a 600mm lens. This is a great feature to have on the phone, but it can be an absolute pain. Try and focus again. Yeah, we're not too bad there. Now what I'm going to do is scroll down to 30 odd and take the photo there. And that's going to be a sharper photo. So in my opinion, that's probably the best way to focus on the moon with the S21 Ultra. I don't think going to 100 times zoom is more than really just a bit of a fad, especially when it comes to the moon. You're going to get a sharper, crisper photo of the moon when you bring it back to around 30. Like I say, just tend to focus when it's about 50 times zoom, bring it back a little bit. As it goes through its computational, let it do its own thing and hit the shutter when you see that it's nice and focused. So what we've got now, the moon is about 15 minutes maybe from hitting the horizon. What I do there, I'm not sure if you've seen that before, but with the sun and with the moon, all those sorts of things, I use my hand. So one finger between the sun and the horizon, or the moon and the horizon, is about 15 minutes. It's got about 15 minutes to go before it hits the horizon. Two fingers is 30 minutes. 3 fingers is, you guessed it, and a whole hand is about an hour. So we've got about 15 minutes to go. Would you believe there's a bloody car coming? They have a car coming here. Well, it's actually not a car, it's one of my neighbours. He's getting in cows for milking early in the morning. So, no, there's no traffic coming, it's just a quad bike and a paddock over the road there. So what we're going to do is have a look at this moon coming in the gap just between those 2 trees there. I'm going to see if I can get the moon in the gap of those 2 trees, just using one photo from the Samsung S21 Ultra. So where it's sitting now, it's sitting just to the left of the gap, so I've got to move up that way probably another 30 metres or so. I've got 15 minutes or so. But while I'm here also, there's a tree here, there's an old dead tree that I want to get a photo of, and we're going to put those 2 together with Snapseed later on. I'll show you that at the end. Anyway, I'll take a photo of this, and then I'll get down there and take a photo of that moon in the gap of the trees. So he's getting his cows in right now, and this actually might make for a good photo. I can see the cows. There's a lot of fog on the ground at the moment, and the moon is lighting up that fog, and the cows are walking through that fog, so this will be interesting. What I'm going to do is I'll go into Pro mode here on the S21 Ultra, and I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to go to the top lens or the second lens, so it's zoomed a little bit, and then zoom a little bit digitally as well. You can see there's a bit of a lens flare, if you like, from the moon. Can't do much about that. But then we're going to go into the manual focus. We're going to scroll that. As it turns out, it's pretty much infinite focus anyway. You can see those little green halos around those cows as they're moving through. Just going to wait. Capture one right there. So the other settings I've got here, I've got 1/4 of a second, so 1/4 of a second shutter speed, ISO 3200, because it's still pretty bloody dark and the cows are really heavily in the shadows there. There's some more cows coming along here, just a second. I'll photograph this one here as well. What I'm waiting for is when it gets into that V, and another one there. And we'll go down and have a look and see how that photo looks. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's a pretty bloody small lens. We're pushing it a fair distance away. I think that's probably as good as we're going to get. But that moon is getting closer and closer. I'm going to go that way another probably 20 meters or so, and we'll get it just as it hits the tree line. And you can see now it's really close to the middle of those trees. I'll zoom in gradually and you can see what I'm talking about here. Touch on the tree there to try and get that exposure down. You can see the fog on the ground. I'm hoping this is going to make a good photo. We go a little bit closer now, go 10 times zoom. Let's go a bit closer than that. Let's get this, there we go. You can see now it's touching the trees. Hey, we're into it. This will be a good photo now. It's just touching the tip of the trees, and I quite like how that looks. You can see in the screen recording there just how quick that moon is moving. Let's focus on that moon again with the tree in the background. It's going to move that way a couple more paces. I'm going to set this back up now. It's just getting between those two trees. I think if I get leaves on both sides of this tree, I'll be quite happy with that little gap there. On the tripod, move it a little bit. Oh, this is looking good. It's looking really good. Whilst the moon is just about below the horizon, there's still a little bit of moonset, if you like. I want to get the photo of this tree right here. This is old dead tree, and we're going to combine those photos later in Snapseed, the moon photo that we've just taken and a photo of this silhouetted tree. And as the moon is setting, I can actually see the Milky Way above me right now. We've probably got a window of about an hour or so, so we'll get a couple of photos with the S21 of the Milky Way as well, because this thing's bloody awesome for doing that. So I'm just going to use my Wubin torch, the torch to light paint this tree, and I'll show you how I compose this photo in the camera. So the Wubin torch has got different powers, so that's why I like this sort of torch. It cycles through different power modes, so if it's too bright when I'm doing something, I can decrease that power. So I've just got the S21 sitting on a tripod here, and you can see here I'm just painting light onto that tree so that I can see the composition in the camera. So I want that, let's turn that up a little bit. That's one of the good parts about having this torch. So over on the left hand side there, that branch coming out, the vertical branch here, you can see the moon setting in the background there, and I think those two there, the end of that branch is sitting in the photo as well. So I'm going to have all of the tree in the photo, and up in the gap at the top left hand corner there, in that gap in the tree, is where I'm going to put the moon a little bit later, the moon photo that we just took before. So that's a good composition right there. I'll turn that torch off and I'll take a photo. It'll be a pretty dark photo, I would say. There it is. And all the light that you see on that is just coming from the video light that I'm using here. So what I need to do is go into Pro mode for this photo. And I'll actually want to focus on the tree, and I'll show you how to do that. So go to wide. Is it ultra wide going to work? We'll test that composition again because it's using a different lens and it's too far away. So I'll go back into the regular lens, just the wide lens, and that's the same composition that we looked at just a second ago. So with this one, what we want to do is probably take a longer photo. So let's go up to, say, for 10 seconds. We'll go 10 seconds, and we'll decrease the ISO down to, let's try 500 for now. It may work, it may not. Well, that's the whole point of doing this. We experiment. And what I'm going to do is light paint all this in the photo. But first, what we need to do is set the focus. So we go to manual focus, and what I'm looking for here, screw up. Go back to Pro Mode, go to manual focus, and I'm going to move that down and up. And what I'm looking for are those green halos, those green highlights around that tree. That tells me that the tree is in focus. So when you're focusing on something at night time, just use the torch onto the subject, use the manual focus on this camera until you see green highlights, and that's in focus right there. So now we can take this first photo. So what I'm going to do is hit the shutter button, go this way, hit light across it from that side, and go that side and hit light across it from this side, and we'll end up with a pretty cool in-focused photo. We'll try a couple and we'll see which one works best. So while the screen recording's running, I'll just explain what I'm doing here. I've tried different sorts of brightnesses on the torch, and I've tried lighting it from one side, tried lighting it from the other side, and I'm shooting both regular JPEGs and RAW. And as I go through looking at the photos that I've ended up with, what I've got here is a RAW photo, and I'll tell you what, on the back of the camera, just on the back of the camera, that looks bloody amazing. The light from the setting moon, it almost looks like a sunset. That's just amazing. I really, really like that. This will edit incredibly well, and we'll get onto that in just a second. What I'm going to do before we go in though, I'm going to take a photo of this Milky Way because the moon is set now and the core is right up there and it looks pretty bloody amazing. So right now what I'm trying to do is I've worked out where the galactic core is with using photo pills. I'll link up the top here to all different videos that I've done about finding where the galactic core is so you can photograph it with your phone. I'm going to sit the camera underneath that tree a little bit, and I'm going to do a composition photo with the Milky Way in the same position as where it will be when I take a photo of the tree branches as well. So what I'm going to do is put the phone underneath the tree as much as I can without it making the photo, well, too stupid. Put it under there, have the Milky Way in the photo, have branches in the photo, and I'll take one photo with the Milky Way, don't move anything, take another photo, refocus on the branches, take another photo, I'll probably change the settings and light paint the torch with onto the branches and end up with a good photo like this. So there's two different settings that I'm going to use on this. The first one is to capture the Milky Way, and the first settings that I use here is 30 seconds, infinite focus, so the manual focus is all the way to the top, 30 seconds, ISO 3200. This is a conversation that we have around generally in the comments that my lights, my photo, which is white, it doesn't work. You need to adjust those settings. So 30 seconds might be too much for you. Bring it down to 15, bring it down to 10. Try those. Bring the ISO down to 1600, bring it down to 800. It really depends on the light pollution that you have. But right here where I am, it is dark as dark can be. It's pitch black. I can't really take a bad photo of the night sky where I am here. I'm pretty lucky. So second photo, we're going to change a few things, but let's get the first photo out of the way first. It really is quite funny. I just went and checked, as I was talking to you just then, I went and checked, I actually set a photo to go while I was talking to you. I was standing about 5 meters over there, and this video light put enough light onto the lower branches of this tree, or the exposed branches of this tree, that the photo is pretty bloody amazing. Sometimes Lady Luck just plays her part, and that's a ripper photo, I'll show you. But I've changed it up a little bit now, and I've moved it so that there's just a couple of branches coming up and there's a little bit on the bottom right hand side. I'm shooting this in portrait orientation because I'm shooting pretty much vertical at the moment. I don't know if you can see that. Let me just shine a torch on that and hopefully you can see how that, look at the angle of that phone. It's pointing almost directly up. In fact, there's enough light on the ground at the moment. We'll try something else in a minute because there's a bit of fog around. I'll show you how to do something else. But the tree, I've just taken another photo there with the settings that I just mentioned to you before, and it looks like this. And you can see there the branches are all silhouetted. So what I'm going to do now is take another photo without moving the tripod. Really important, don't move the tripod. We'll put these two together with two different parts of the image in focus. It's kind of like focus stacking. It'll be a mint photo. So you can't move the photo, you can't move the camera. So what we're going to do now is change the ISO down to, say, 500, and we're going to change the shutter speed to about 4 seconds. It'll give us enough time, and we're going to change the focusing to the branch, just like we did before with the tree branches. I'm just going to move it down with the light on it until I see the green halos around the subject. And then I'll take another photo for that 4 seconds, hit it with the torch, and it'll end up looking like this. So as I just said, there's a bit of fog on the ground. The Milky Way is up, the moon is down. what I'm going to do is I've got this camera set up on a tripod, it's nice and low, and I'm just going to go down the road here. I've set the timer on the camera, so to 10 seconds. I'll set it for 10 seconds, all the same settings, the 3200 to 30 seconds, and manual focus on infinity, so I capture the Milky Way. I'm going to go down the road there about 10 meters after I push the button, and you've got to stand dead still, hold the torch vertically in the air, and it's going to give us this little light beam that you can see just here, and I'll hold it on there for about maybe 1 or 2 seconds, and then you've got to stand dead still to take the photo. So, wait a minute. Taking a photo right now. Hopefully that worked out pretty well. Let's have a look. That should be enough photos now. We've got the moon photo, we've got the Milky Way photo with the tree, we've got the moon photo with the tree, and we've got this bloke out there on the road with the torch. Let's go and edit some of these, and we'll see how we go. Well, it's good to be back inside, away out from the cold, because it was getting pretty bloody cold this morning when I was out there doing that. Let's have a look at a couple of photos. The principles that we're about to do is basically the same for a couple of them. So we'll look at the moon photo with the tree, and basically what we're doing here is having the tree, and then we're going to bring in the second exposure of the moon and bring it together in Snapseed via the double exposure tool. Let's have a look at it. So here's the photo of the tree. It's a pretty bloody good photo. I really like that with the moon set. We're going to go down to tools and go to double exposure. With the double exposure, we're going to hit the plus icon, go into the gallery and pull out the photo of the moon. Put up the top there, we're going to shrink it down as much as we can because we want it to look kind of realistic, even though this doesn't look that realistic. Go into the tangent, you've got different options that we're going to try here, but what we're going to use is the lighten one, and we've applied that. Now we need to go up the top to the revert button and go to double exposure, hit on the brush, and we're going to brush out, just change, there's the masking tool. We need to bring that double exposure down to 0. Get a hold of it, Mozzie. Bring it down to 0. There we go there. And we're going to just paint out that rectangle so it's not actually applied to the double exposure. So what we're doing here is getting rid of that part of the double exposure. So that rectangle is no longer there. There you go. That looks pretty bloody good. That's all we really need to do with that. And we'll export that straight from there. And the other photos are exactly the same. With the photos with the Milky Way and the tree, we're just bringing in a double exposure, hitting that lighten part, or the lighten masking if you like, and there you go, the photo's done. The other photo at the end here, it's a little bit different with me holding that flashlight with the Wubin torch. We'll edit that one as well. So this is the photo of me holding that torch up into the night sky. A few things with the composition of this photo. I like that the leading lines are there to bring you to the subject, which is obviously me in this photo. When you're doing this sort of photo, it's pretty important to try and silhouette yourself against the night sky. That's why the tripod with the phone on it was just set down so low. So let's have a look at this edit. We could just go ahead and apply some presets. Moonlit night astro, will that work? Actually, that did work. That's not too bad at all. So these presets are actually on the website, phonephotoschool.com.au, if you're not familiar with what else I do. But if you don't have that preset, let's just cancel out of that and we'll just do it all from scratch. Let's go down to light and we'll bring up the shadows. I'm looking at the foreground here, the road in front of, like leading into the photo, and we'll bring those shadows up a little, and we're going to go to the blacks and drop that down a little. So what we've done there is bring a little contrast into the trees and stuff on the side of the road, but we've also put some recovery of shadows into the road itself. And add some contrast, and I'm looking at the night sky when I add this contrast, about a fair bit there, and I'm going to leave that just like that. Now the white balance in this isn't too bad. If I go any more blue, it's probably going to turn too blue. Around 4200 is, I'm okay with that. Was that 4184? It's close enough for me. I don't know if I want to keep that pink sky or not. We'll leave that where it is like that. Head over to effects, and I'm going to use the dehazing tool. It's quite a good tool for this particular camera because it tends to bring out a little bit of haze like the iPhone does. and we'll add a little bit of clarity, but that's all I'll do with that there. The detail, we're going to do a little bit of noise reduction. Try to do a bit of that already. Just zoom in there over me. Looks like I've moved my head a little bit in that photo. I've got a small head, which that's okay because it's bloody huge. What I'm going to do now, what I'm looking at this point is the sky versus the ground, and I want to recover a little bit more shadow in this. Go back to light and bring up the shadow again, just so you can see the legs in the photo against the dirt there. So I don't want that to affect the sky though, so I'm just going to go and add a selective edit, hit the plus up the top, hit the gradient tool, and bring that down to roughly that sort of distance, and then drop that a little bit lower. Now what I'm going to do is go into light and add some contrast to that, and that's going to let that sky pop just that little bit, and go over to the effects tab, dehazing a little, and a little bit of clarity. You can see that there's the head of the galactic core in the sky there. I'm going to see if we can put a radial tool onto that one and see if it will actually affect it or not. It may do. So the radial tool there is just on the core. If you grab on one of the sides of the radial tool, you can turn it. Let's go to the effects tab and add some clarity. Clarity is usually, almost always, the only thing I do with it. Clarity and dehazing. Might add a little bit of contrast into that, and we'll see what happens. That's not too bad. Just going to hit the tick on that one. There's the edit, all done. All right. It's all done, and I'm pretty happy with that photo. The rest of the photos there is basically the same sort of principles. So if you're into this sort of photos, head over, if you're on Facebook, head over to the Bloody Legends group page there. We share a lot of photos. I'll throw some of these up there, and I'll see you guys next week.